Hey, White Sox fans, it's Brett Valentini here hosting. I bet you're at home watching, in the car, listening, and thinking, maybe Southside Sox needs another podcast. And I'm here to tell you, we got another podcast for you. I think this year, don't hold me to it. This could just be a unicorn of a podcast, but I think we might be doing something maybe on a weekly basis, a couple times a month, just focusing on the farm system. I know right now we all have our heads sort of wagging out the window. The window of attention's open. We are screaming for wins for the White Sox, the big guys, the Major League White Sox. But there's still a lot going on down on the farm, particularly Charlotte, which is providing maybe questionable reinforcements for the team this season. The Major League team, we've already seen the team get a little bit tripped up outfield-wise. Billy Hamilton's on the team. So it's a situation where we definitely want to still focus on the minor leagues. And so we're launching something I'm calling at least, just Southside Sox on the Farm. We'll see if we hang with that. Certainly two guys are going to be featured on that frequently. James Fox, who you know, of course, as our White Sox insider. Of course, he's in the middle of everything over at Future Sox. So he's going to be tuned into everything, even as his attention is being paid for the to the Major League team and how well they're doing. He's keeping his finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in the minors. And our jack of all trades, our everyman who does a little bit of everything for the site and focus more and more perhaps on the minor leagues of late. It's Darren Black. These guys I like to consider sort of fire and ice. Sometimes they like to debate each other. The prediction before we went on the air is that perhaps there will be a lot more agreement than I would anticipate. We'll see. Maybe there'll be a little bit of point counterpoint we got going on here in this minor league podcast. So guys, welcome. Thanks for taking the time as the minor league season is finally on the brink and about to begin for us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. And, it's good to finally talk to Darren on one of these podcasts, it's something that we've always kind of talked about and then we never did it. So.
Yeah, it's good to actually talk about minor league baseball. You'll actually be able to watch too. So I'm glad that everything is kind of getting back to it.
Point counterpoint podcast. I don't predict anybody's going to go over the table at the other and choke like a Jim Everett thing from back in the day, but you never know. There could be some scolding or some finger wagging. We'll see. We're going to just get things kicked right off. I'm going to go big to begin with for you guys, and that is just taking a look at what we would consider strength of the system. My read, and again, I'm going to pretty much step to the side and let you guys run this whole podcast, but it seems like lower levels, a lot of strength and reinforcement. Up top, strong, but that strength seems to be in the major leagues now. In the middle, maybe a little bit of a donut situation. Tell me about the strength of the system for the White Sox.
Yeah, so I think, and I'll go first, I guess, but I think that's pretty much correct. I think just looking at the affiliates, and we can get into them if you want, there's a lot of people at Charlotte that everybody's heard of, right? And a lot of those guys are important, I think, more so for potential trades than they are to help the White Sox. But then after that, everybody's in Kannapolis for the most part. So I think the pitching side is stronger. They do have some pitchers at the top of their system who I like quite a bit, but a lot of them, they just haven't pitched at all. They haven't played, so we don't really know. And then there are some super young dudes finally in the system that are exciting. But yeah, that middle part, the Blake Rutherfords and those guys, it's a big year for them to show something, or they're going to be elsewhere and you're going to have nothing to show for some of that, it seems like. But these guys haven't played in a year and a half. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll get into it obviously, but they're, aggressive assignments and stuff like that. It's going to be a much different year than people have been used to seeing.
Aaron, any better hope for sort of the middle of the system? And Grant, let me point out, I'm throwing you guys under the bus here because we're talking about guys that we haven't seen play competitively since 2019. Maybe we've got a little bit of Schaumburg action these last two summers, fall instructionals, this mystery. I heard that there was a spring training round 2, but if you ask the White Sox, we didn't get much information about it. There was a little bit of information from Schaumburg. I don't know if anybody was at Camelback once all the big guys left. There's been a lot of secrecy. So, Darren, your thought about whether or not any of these guys in the middle tier that we're sort of forgetting about might actually be able to distinguish themselves, finally getting back into play 2 years later?
Well, I think I'm more along with James on this too. It's just the guys from the original rebuild that are good are up. Like they're in the majors right now. The ones that really aren't are they're in the Jake Berger category, injured, not really played much. That's why they're being held down. B, it's Luis Gonzalez, Blake Rutherford, Sebi Zavala just didn't really establish themselves already. But the more interesting part of the system right now is all in Kannapolis. It's going to be a really young team. It's probably the team that would have been the Great Falls Voyagers if they still existed. But it's all just the really young guys just trying to get out there to start. But higher levels, mostly for depth purposes. Looks like they might need to call up another outfielder, but we'll find out tomorrow with Luis Robert. But yeah, definitely, I don't really see anybody in AAA coming onto this team, hitting wise at least, and kind of taking over a spot for the major league team this year.
Let's jump into the idea that James had come up with when we were planning this show, and the general trend around the majors, and the White Sox are certainly falling in line with it, the aggressiveness of assignments. Now, I can imagine that might have a little bit to do with the fact that it's been a lost season, have to do with the fact that the minor leagues are compressed now, so it even seems more aggressive than it might have been. As Darren, you just said, a lot of these guys in Kannapolis might have been in Great Falls, at least wetting their boots a little bit before they move up to Kannapolis. Talk a little bit about that, James, in terms of just the change that we've seen in how the minor leagues are going to be run, and maybe specifically how the White Sox are doing it different from them.
Yeah. So, I mean, just, it kind of seems like it's going to be a league-wide trend. So people that I've talked to, I've seen some of the White Sox assignments that we can talk about. And some of them are like, ooh, like, I don't think that guy's ready for that spot. But, I mean, everybody's kind of in the same boat. Darren mentioned there's no Great Falls, which essentially means there's no short season rookie ball. So there's going to be guys in Arizona, like at the White Sox complex, but that league isn't going to start until, July, like after the draft happens. So everybody else is in Kannapolis. Like I've seen most of the roster for Kannapolis, and it's exciting, but like it's super young. I mean, the 3 high school pitchers that they've drafted over the past couple years, Jared Kelly, Andrew Dahlquist, Matthew Thompson, they're all there. And then you have guys like, James Beard, who was a 4th round high school pick. He's there. Chase Krogman is a, 33rd round high school pick. That was like an overslot type guy. He's there. Recent international types, Brian Ramos, Benjamin Bailey, they're there. So, and then I think like Jose Rodriguez is there too. Somebody that, people listening to this probably have heard of. DJ Gladney was a 16th rounder out of high school. Like that's super young. I mean, that would not be typical that those guys would go to low A, like right out of the chute essentially. But I mean, they haven't really been doing, they've been working out on their own. Those guys would typically go to Great Falls, but there was no season last year. Like they would have went to Great Falls last year. So it seems like what the Sox are doing is like, they're just like skipping to the level that they would have been at had there been baseball last year. It's even the same thing in AAA. Like Jake Berger's going to AAA. And I had many people ask me like, why are they not sending him back to A-ball? And I, honestly, like, I think they're going to try to accelerate the process. And some of these guys might sink because of it. But anytime you can jump a guy over AA Birmingham, like I'm with it, because especially when it's like a guy like Blake Rutherford or Jake Berger, who like, if you could take those 2 guys and turn them into like a pitcher to help the big league team at the deadline, I think you're more likely to trade those guys, like if they're successful. And I think they're more likely to hit in Charlotte than they are playing in that freaking graveyard in Birmingham. So that's one of the reasons. But yeah, I mean, like I understand the apprehension. Darren Berger, I don't think Berger even played at Winston. Like I think he was in Canny, got hurt, and then hasn't played again. And now he's going to Charlotte. So, it's obviously been years, but there's just assignments like that all over the place that are like super aggressive assignments. I haven't paid close enough attention to like the other teams, but my guess is they're doing it too. And that low A is just going to be like a high upside, like rookie ball league. And maybe the play won't be as great.
Darren is a guy who's going to be following this very closely for us, doing the minor league updates. You're real deep into that. And our minor league nightly updates going to be 6 days a week, and then 1 day to pause, and you'll still be working then too.
They're back.
Is a you're going to be knee deep in that, And as a guy following it, both as an analyst, but just writing it up, when you're looking at a team like Kannapolis, is that a little bit more delightful for you just because you've got such a concentration of talent? And yes, a few guys maybe are going to fall by the wayside because they got moved up too aggressively. But is it exciting to know that there are going to be guys who are going to distinguish themselves and maybe even make moves from low A this year just from what they do? Jose Rodriguez maybe hits the ground running what he's done in Arizona, and he just keeps doing it in Kannapolis.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely much better. Like even just sometimes just whenever Charlotte does come on the television or MILB.TV, it's just always more exciting to watch the younger guys. They have a lot more to prove. We especially for Kannapolis, most of us have not even seen these guys pitch because the last time some of these guys most of them were in high school. No one's going out and watching high school games from this, and no one was watching Dominican baseball with Benjamin Bailey and Jose Rodriguez. It was just with the minor league updates we do. That's how people viewed them. So it's going to be much better to see them. I am kind of wondering, because this is going to be their first full season of baseball. And now it is starting a month late. So it's already fewer games than normal, but it's still their first full season of baseball. And I'm not real sure how it's going to go for these 19, 20-year-old guys who have never done that before. Like, I don't know if Jose Rodriguez is going to be playing 4 out of 7 games a week, something like that. Maybe a 6-7 man rotation, especially for the guys that are going to have innings limits. Because again, they're 19, 20. They're not going to throw 140 innings a year, but all of that interesting development is going to play it out. And I did see that Chris Getz did say he's not expecting a ton of promotions, but that was mostly because of the pandemic. So maybe that'll change later on this year when it gets a bit better. But yeah, they should be in Kannapolis, and it looks like they're going to be all there for a little while.
Yeah, and sorry, Brett. One of the things, it seems like it's like 17 pitchers like per affiliate. It sounds like, which sounds
they all have to pitch at some time,
which sounds absolutely absurd, right? But I mean, like, you're right about guys like Andrew Dahlquist and Matthew Thompson. Like, there's an innings limit. I don't know what it is, but they have one. So I don't know if that's like they'll go 3 innings and then they're out, or if they'll like piggyback start or whatever. But I mean, you're looking at 100 innings max, I would think, for all those guys like that. They literally threw 2 innings 2 years ago. And then last year they threw a bunch of the alt site, but that's about it. So we really don't know. I mean, those guys are super exciting down there. The Charlotte rotation, I think, is interesting. Jimmy Lambert's starting opening night in Charlotte. He hasn't been at the alt site, but he's been in Arizona. And I had heard from a contact that, they kind of think they kind of thought that he would be in the big leagues like mid-season, in the role that Kopech's in now, because he's on an innings limit too, so I feared that he was hurt still because he wasn't in Schaumburg, but they were just slow playing him in Arizona, and he's starting opening night in Charlotte, which is good. I think he's a starter, but I mean, you're trying to win a World Series, like he can come up and throw 2 or 3 innings like in your bullpen. And then Jonathan Stevers probably in that rotation. Cade McClure is a guy whose stuff is ticked up quite a bit in the last year. So he's a couple injuries away from a spot start too, I would imagine. So, he's in Charlotte as well. And so is Ronaldo Lopez is there too. So, but yeah, like the common theme here seems to be, we're talking about Kannapolis and we're talking about Charlotte because, the rosters in Birmingham and Winston, there's some guys there, but it's like a lot of filler in high A and double A right now.
Mm-hmm. How strange is it, guys, that and I know that the spot in the rotation, even at Schaumburg, you still got to give guys their rest. So maybe the math worked against them. How strange is it that Ronaldo Lopez, even as they've needed spot guys, 27th man, weird innings eat thing, I haven't even seen that his name has come up as a guy who could possibly come, but just to sit on the bench just in case. It's quite a fall. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a spot for guys that just throw like 95 down the middle. So I'm fine with them giving Stever and Lambert a chance because they're the higher upside at this point.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm surprised that they haven't just like converted him to full-fledged relief yet, because he's out of options next year, or this is his last option year, right?
Yeah.
Like, my guess is he's not even in camp with them next year. So like, I don't know if they want to start him to like use him as like the second or third piece in a deadline deal or what, but like you would think that you would just make him a short inning reliever, see if the stuff ticks up to see if you can extract anything out of him, because like I don't see him starting another game for the White Sox ever again. So then you're running into like, okay, you're carrying him on the 40 man. I guess they don't want to dump him for nothing, but kind of like what Brett says, like, I don't expect to see him in Chicago again. So like, what are we doing here type of thing? You know, like, are they hoping that he goes to Charlotte, pitches well, and then he's the third piece in a deal? I don't know. So we'll see, but I'm really not expecting to see him.
I mean, from earmarked, maybe right pre-Camelback as, I guess, probably your italicized, maybe fifth man, to like just effectively out of the system is it's pretty this quick. I mean, this is not July. We're not talking about this July. It's like 2 weeks later, he's disappeared. All right, let's leapfrog then into positional strength in this system. Certainly high up, as I think James alluded. There is legit pitching, even though on the starting side, it's scary. It's a little bit of white knuckling, but there are guys. Certainly in the pen, it seems like there's a fair number of guys who can come up just right now and potentially contribute if there's a need. Even though, of course, there's just one lefty in the pen right now, so it's certainly not a surplus. But maybe starting top end, but then maybe both top end and then maybe rest of system. Where do you see the strengths and weaknesses of the system overall?
Well, so, I mean, the clear strength is pitching. I mean, like before the season, obviously, like your clear strength is 4 top 50 prospects probably in baseball, but they're all on the big league team. So, as soon as those guys graduate off, you're hoping for a Yoelqui Cespedes or like Norge Vera to really pop. So then it's not just 3 prep arms and all of your like used to be hope basically. Because the system, like I think Jared Kelly's awesome, but Jared Kelly's in Kannapolis and he's probably in Winston next year. And then, he's like probably a year at a level guy. I mean, we'll see if he's as good as I think he can be, maybe he's quicker than that, but like they have no innings base. None of those guys do. So I do think that's the strength. Like it's young pitching. And then there are, other young guys that I like, but they need to play. Like I like Brian Ramos quite a bit. Ben Bailey's interesting, but he played Dominican Summer League baseball. So like, I just like, don't think we know, it would be very helpful if Gavin Sheets or Luis Gonzalez or Jake Burke, like even if one of those guys is like a bench bat, that's like an up and down big leaguer, like that would be useful. But it's definitely a system where unless they load up like in this draft somehow, I mean, this system's going to be, and like, look, ranking, like your system's going to go down when your big league team's as good as it is. But I mean, this is a back 10 system, probably, I would think, to start next year, like for sure.
Darren, can you give us any better hope than that there's some depth that somehow James Fox of Future Sox is missing?
No, I think he's right on again. Definitely not a lot of depth. Or at least major league, like could be in the majors depth hitting wise, like in Charlotte and Birmingham. It's really just kind of what he said. I'd also throw in Mike Rodolfo. You got to see like where he's at after being injured. But yeah, it's definitely pitching. And I've always thought the relief pitching has always been the best part of this system. Once they started the rebuild, I was like, there's some really good relievers in this pen. And I mean, some of them are up already, like Cody Hoyer. And obviously Garrett Crochet probably wasn't supposed to be a reliever right away, but he's up there. But you've got Zach Birdie. You want to see how he bounces back. Tyler Johnson. I still think if he wouldn't have gotten that lat injury, he would have been on the team last season. And then when you go lower down to the minors, Caleb Freeman. Seems like he's a guy that Chris Getz is really excited about. But really just harping on the relievers, that's kind of my view of what the best kind of aspect of the system is.
So after the White Sox drafted Caleb Freeman in the 15th round out of Texas Tech, we had Nick Hostetler on, and he spoke of Caleb Freeman like similarly to how he talked to me about Ian Hamilton after that draft and how he talked about Cody Hoyer after that draft, where it was just typical, like the dude was on the Cape pitching in relief and he was nasty. And then he went to Texas Tech and he started and he was terrible because he's probably not a starter, and he falls. And, you know, they draft him with the intention of converting him to relief. And he's one of these guys that like moves quickly, right? Like I don't think anybody thought Cody Hoyer was this guy, but it was a typical, like, yeah, he's got a 5 ERA as a starter at Wichita. We're going to turn him into a reliever. And then he pops. So like, I don't know if Freeman's going to be as good as Hoyer. He's starting at Winston, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb Freeman next year in spring training is one of these guys where they're like, oh, watch this Caleb Freeman. He could make the team out of spring training, like one of those type of guys. Yeah. So he is definitely like the next one. And that is an area where they've been really good, like there. And you don't get paid to like draft relievers, but it's nice to, and they did the opposite of this, right? But it's nice to like have a bunch of them, so then you don't have to go pay for a bunch of relief pitchers. And that's like something that I thought that they had, and then they like paid for a closer anyway. So who knows? Yeah,
they're really good at drafting and developing like right-handed relievers. I just really wish they could do that with left-handed, because they don't really have that many. And maybe that's where they probably should have put some money anyway, but I digress on off-season decisions.
Hey, Aaron, there's always next off-season.
Yeah, there always is another off-season.
There's always another reliever.
Yeah.
Or he'll come up with another one. We're going to take
not only that. I mean,
ooh.
I bet. You hear that?
Yep.
Oh, well.
Oh, I can hear you better.
Whoever that was provided by, thank you. But hey, that was sort of like our break. In fact, that's going to be our break. And now we're back with the first Southside Sox on the Farm podcast. And, you know, James, you had a thought that I would like you to complete.
Yeah. So, well, no, I mean, I think we all kind of thought like, okay, Liam Hendriks is here. Like the bullpen's a strength. I do still think it is a strength. But I think they're going to trade for a powerhouse reliever at the deadline still. So it's, you know, it's kind of like, that's like something that maybe you would have thought like, no way they'd need that. But like, if you look at the pen right now, like if you're in it and you're leading I mean, I could see them trading for an eighth inning guy. Definitely. Like, I mean, why not? Right. I mean, cause I feel like Marshall hasn't been as good as like we've expected. Garrett Crochet hasn't really been, I don't think, what they've anticipated. I think Kopech might be starting at some point. So yeah, I mean, then you're back to Bummer and Hoyer. And if you're trying to win a title, like I think I would not be surprised at all if there's, you know, they just like acquire some stud reliever and now they have a fresh, brand new eighth inning guy.
James, all the Cubans, all the relievers. There's a theme here. Just, you know, don't divide and conquer, just conquer. Okay, guys, I'll put you on the spot here then, I guess, if we haven't already brought the guy up. Do you have a pet prospect or a guy that maybe people are a little bit up on that you're a little bit more sour on?
So I don't know if anybody's up on him anymore. Like I've never really been a Blake Rutherford guy, like since I saw him. So I kind of liked him like out of high school. But then once it was kind of established that he can't play center, like I don't really see the profile. And Darren, I don't know how, like your thoughts on Rutherford, but I mean, he's probably left field only. He doesn't really hit for power. So I'm not really sure like what he does for you. I mean, he's added strength and they talk about that, you know, like, I mean, if he doesn't sell out to hit for power, I'm just like not really sure, you know, what he is. Like I always kind of like thought like maybe like Ryan Sweeney-ish, but I mean, like I like Ryan Sweeney had a big league career and I don't know if Blake Rutherford's like even going to have that. And that was, you know, the centerpiece of one of their trades was Blake Rutherford. Right. So, and you're not going to hit on all of them, but you know, that's just kind of, he's just been meh, like for kind of a while here. He is at Charlotte. So look, he could feast on 4A pitching and all of a sudden he hits like 10 homers out of that place because it's crazy down there. And that would be best case scenario. Cause then maybe you could make him the second piece in a deal somewhere. But you know, he's the one guy that I don't really see it.
I mean, I don't really see it either. I know back when the decision was to drop DFA Luis Basabe, it's semantics at this point, but I would have preferred it to be a Blake Rutherford. And I'm sure like once Yolesky Cespedes comes up from AA, someone's got to go. Maybe it's like Mickey Matuk, someone that's not really, there's nothing there. But if a prospect had to go, if if Cespedes coming up, and they need to get rid of one of their former top prospects, it's probably Rutherford. Like he looked good with the Yankees at low A and hasn't looked good since. So
is this a matter of Rick Hahn continuing to insist that Yermin Mercedes can be a catcher? Getz does not miss an opportunity to hype up what he's seen from Rutherford at Schaumburg, and he's flashing some power. Is that smoke to get him inserted as the maybe second piece, or is that just wishful thinking?
Well, it's probably, I mean, he's like in charge of all them. I wouldn't badmouth them to the public. So I think that's just how it comes down to.
Logic. Okay. Thank you, Darren. Thank you.
We're gonna see, right? Because we can't just like take their word for it anymore. Right. He's actually gonna start playing games on Tuesday. So.
Yes, they don't get to hide anymore. They've been hitting for so long. I'm sorry, White Sox. I praise you when you kick ass for us, and when you sort of just fall asleep on us, you're gonna get called out for it. And let's just put it this way. It'll be nice to see 4 affiliates in action, because boy, it's like we sort of forgot what some of these guys look like. Just footage of them coming off the bus was like, wow, those guys are still alive. Hey, there's the cannon. Awesome. Guys, maybe you're a little hyped on more than maybe their prospect rankings would indicate.
Some of it for me, it's like the younger guys, but it's just a matter of like them not playing. Like I think Brian Ramos is really going to take off. I think, he can really hit for a 19-year-old. He's in Kannapolis. I know Darren said, kind of echoed what they had said, where they're probably going to leave these guys at affiliates. That's more so because of COVID, I think, than anything else. I think he's going to be really good down in low A. I think he's probably a top 10 prospect in the system soon. Some of that because of attrition and, some of these other guys falling off the list, but I like him quite a bit. And then Jake Burger's healthy. Like, I think Jake Burger's a big leaguer. I don't know if he's like a first division, like starter, regular type, like on a good team, like at third, but I think he's going to play in the majors. And, that's not the goal of the 11th overall pick in the draft, but I mean, like you get guys to the majors, like it's not a loss, right? Like it's not totally bad. And with what he's gone through, I just think like, some of the character stuff, like people, like as a football guy, like, it's like some of that stuff's overrated, but like with him, like I honestly like believe like his like mental toughness is one of the reasons why like he's even still like attempting to play baseball. So that's why I don't think Charlotte is like, I don't think it's super crazy that they're just like sending him right to Charlotte, because he could just like find his, I mean, he's like 25. So, I think he plays in the big leagues.
Yeah. I've always been a little bit higher, than others on Gavin Sheets and, Tyler Johnson throughout their careers. And right now there's no reason for me to back off from them at this point. Sheets, I mean, good walk rate, doesn't strike out as much as, other first baseman power type guys. He just actually needs to find that power. And I'm hoping this is finally the year, because 2019, he actually did hit 16 homers. It actually did improve somewhat. And then Tyler Johnson, again, I don't think there's any reason to be down on him. Fireballer. If you're looking to add an 8th inning guy instead of going out and trading for one, I honestly would give him a chance, because he's a stud.
As we are being forced, because we're having a Tripod of Terror podcast here, to at least begin to wind down on this podcast, I am interested in the mechanics of how the season's going to go. And let me just throw this concept out. Given that there are going to be injuries and maybe potentially a few promotions or trades, there might be a need to move guys up before the rookie season in Arizona after the draft would start. Are there guys you feel or know are in Camelback as sort of that Schaumburg for the rest of the system, where if there is that need, are the teams so stacked that they can withstand any of those, any possible injuries or losses? Or are there guys maybe who are going to be more at the ready to come up, who are going to be in Camelback before Arizona gets rolling?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the rosters are loaded to the point where they have so many extra players that it like doesn't matter. I think there's going to be guys at Camelback, but it's mostly guys that they didn't think were ready to go to Kannapolis. That's like one of my fears with this, like across the industry, is just that like without Great Falls, And it's not just a White Sox problem. Like it's a baseball problem, right? So you got a guy like Bryce Bush a couple of years ago. You show up out of high school, you tear up rookie ball, like in Arizona complex league. So they like push you, right? And they decide, okay, we're going to send him to A ball. Well, then if you go to A ball and completely tank, now there's like no buffer. Now there's no like, okay, send him to Great Falls, see how he does at Great Falls. Now it's like you got to, once Arizona starts, you have to send him back to Arizona. So I don't really know how that's like, that's one of those like small things, but I mean, look, sink or swim, I guess. Like there's a few guys in the system like Anderson Comas, and then there's Luis Mieses, who are like 2016 international signings that take forever. Typically. They're in like Winston-Salem. I mean, I don't think those guys are ready for high A, but it's like, this is where we have to send you because we have guys younger than you that have to go to Kannapolis. Like Bryce Bush is going to Winston-Salem. You know, I mean, so there's just like a whole bunch of stuff like that where it's, you know, but yeah, like Camelback's functional and operational, I guess we could say, but that's going to be more for like guys that are hurt, guys that are like rehabbing extended spring. And then it's guys like getting ready to, you know, play the rookie league season. So there's really not many guys there. My guess is they're going to send the majority of their picks to Arizona is what they'll do. You know, I mean, I'm sure their first rounder, if it's a college guy, they'll send him to Winston or whatever. But like, other than that, I think that's your rookie ball team.
Philosophically, Darren, we have lost an entire affiliate. We have fewer teams in the minor leagues. I don't like it. It helps complete minor league updates before 2 a.m. But just philosophically, it's better to have more teams, fewer teams. We want to see more guys in our system with the chance of them maybe somebody catching some lightning and getting up.
Yeah, I mean, I just liked the 2 rookie leagues just in general. Like you draft a guy, send him to like a structured environment in Arizona, especially if they're a high schooler, or if they're a little bit older and a little bit more polished, send them to Great Falls and get ready for what a grueling minor league baseball season is like. I mean, there's not a ton of travel involved, but there still is some travel. You got to play every day. I much rather would have more teams. I mean, then again, it does shorten some guys' careers that would never make it to the majors anyway. You can look at it that good, bad as like teams stringing somebody along so they can just have some bench at bats, or it's like, oh, you're actually seeing the better guys play all the time. Because there's a lot of, especially in Kannapolis, there's a lot of playing. Not a lot of playing time for all those guys that I would like to see the playing time, especially pitching. So they just got to figure that out first. But much rather would have Great Falls is the overarching point.
Yeah, Major League Baseball hasn't announced yet, and I've reached out to see if like you're allowed to have 2 complex league teams, because that could make some sense. Like,
yeah,
you just have 2 Arizona League teams, and like one of your teams is playing at the Reds' place, and your team's playing at your place, like against somebody, right? Where you have so many guys, because Chris Getz has been, like he's been pretty aggressive with international prospects where he sent kids like immediately stateside. Like Brian Ramos was like that. Lenyon Sosa was like that, where they didn't even play in the DSL. Usually when the high impact guys are in the DSL, like Jorge Vera, it's for tax purposes so they can get their full bonus, stuff like that, you know, and that's not even like the White Sox fault. It's just like, it just depends on what year like contracts were signed and stuff like that. So, but yeah, like look, we don't need a 40-round baseball draft. It's too many. You don't need to be drafting kids, people like decision makers.
Larry King's child.
He
exactly. Doesn't need to be drafted.
Yeah, like you don't need some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it sucks for small town USA and like those towns where like they don't have minor league affiliates anymore and, you know, stuff like that. They're still going to have baseball, but they're going to be these partner leagues and stuff like that. And I think we'll adjust. I think it'll ultimately be fine, but it is, you know, you're going to have some guys that fall through the cracks that like give up on a career and, you know, go take a manager job somewhere instead of like grinding it out and playing baseball. You might not have like many Yermin Mercedes anymore.
Yeah, it's just an odd situation because no one played last year, so it's an odd time to get rid of a team, even though it was in place last year. It's just an odd time to take away more playing time when you need it after not playing an entire season.
Yeah, none of the prospects are going to care about not going to Montana anymore, but no, like I agree.
Yeah.
Like I agree that there should be like another affiliate somewhere. But I mean, anybody I interviewed that was there would tell me about this sub sandwich place that was there. like up there by Great Falls, because it's literally the only place like, that's up there near the stadium.
It's a voyage.
Easy,
Yes.
easier minor league updates, easier real-time draft day coverage, Darren, James, my goodness, we won't have to run through 40 guys like a snap. It'll just be 20. How about that? We, of course, hey, everybody listening and watching, happy opening day for the minor leagues running on Tuesdays. Is going to be great. We're excited. Of course, we're going to have minor league updates every day they're playing. We got this crazy system where it's basically 6 games in one spot, which of course is a nod to the pandemic. That's going to create some interesting nuances of play that certainly the minor leagues haven't had to face, and it's probably going to benefit them overall. And so it's going to be exciting. We haven't had this in a while, and I'm sure for a guy like James, who's got his bread and butter in the organization and the minor league system, it's a particularly exciting time. Of course, Darren, for you as well, has just been our go-to guy and our stalwart writer, doing everything, doing the monthly updates, doing the weekly updates. We got a lot more stuff going on, including probably a weekly minor league podcast. So guys, I definitely want to earmark you for future visits on this podcast. And James, I promise that when Blake Rutherford lights it up for 20 homers in Charlotte, like by mid-season, I will not cut a clip of this and run it around anywhere. Although you'd be like, awesome, we got another guy that we could trade for that late inning arm that we need more of.
Yeah, that is like, there's like a lot of people on Twitter like trying to dunk on me, obviously, for my, like when they're like, oh, Larry Garcia, like game winner. I'm like, I'm very excited about that. Like, I don't like the process of like why he's playing, but if he's gonna win me a game, like, I mean, I'm not disappointed. I just like, think that it's gonna hurt you in the future. So,
Thanks, everybody, for listening, for watching. Of course, for reading Southside Sox. We will be with you and right at you with great minor league coverage beginning this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And thanks, James. Thanks, Darren.